super important as well. Also super important. This was super helpful. I felt like it was really important. Super important. This I found super helpful to do. Hey friends, Evelyn here, and welcome to another PM video. So for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm currently a PM working in tech, and I make a lot of videos about my experience, my past experiences as a PM/PM intern, as well as just kind of daily fun videos of my life. But for today's video, I wanted to focus on a PM specific topic. I've had a lot of comments come in recently about things like, how did I end up at the job that I'm currently at? How did I interview for it? Any interviewing tips? What books did I read? Things like that. So today I wanted to sit down with you guys. I have a huge jug I have like a huge jug of milk tea with me, pumpkin spice milk tea, very festive. And I've also got my iPad here, which I've jotted down everything that helped me in the entire recruitment cycle, everything from looking for apps, what companies were hiring for new grad PMs and things like that, and what I did to interview prep and the books I read and the frameworks I found were helpful. All those things are on this iPad here, and I'm going to run through them today, and I'm very excited to do so. Before I get started though, I do want to say that this is very much just my own experience. This is what helped me. This is what worked for me. There's no right way to do things, so I'm just sharing out with you guys what I did and what I thought was super helpful for me, at least. So make sure, take whatever I say with a grain of salt, because this is just what I did that really helped me. All right, so I kind of want to go through everything in two parts. So the first part is just job finding, how I applied to different jobs and things like that. And then the second part I want to go through is actually the interview prep part of it. But all of this I see as being part of like the recruiting cycle. Let's dive into the first part. So the more straightforward part of the recruiting cycle to me is kind of just looking at all the roles that are out there and seeing what you want to apply for. I think if you already know that you want to go into things like product management, then of course you would do the interview prep beforehand, because sometimes once you apply, it goes really quickly and you can start interviewing, I don't know, like less than a week after you started applying. So I would probably interview prep first, but for the sake of starting with the simple part of recruiting first, I'm going to start with talking about how I looked at what jobs to apply for and things like that. When looking at what apps to send in, I broke it down into really like four main parts. The first being the PM roles themselves. So when a lot of people think about PM, you're probably thinking product management, but I've also seen PM be referred to for project management and program management roles. So that's just something to call out there in terms of the role name itself. Now, what you can really use to kind of figure out what this role entails is the role description. So when looking at the role description itself, I thought what was super important for me to at least look at were, what are the responsibilities of this role? Is it actually more similar to product management, or is it more similar to project management? There's also things like programs that it's a part of. So a lot of companies have like new grad rotational programs. So are you joining this role? Is this role that you're joining going to already be on a specific team? Is it like a broad general thing that they're recruiting for? Is it a rotational one? Are you not going to actually be able to stick with the team? Things like that to look out for in the role description. I also threw in, is it new grad specific? Sometimes there's more mentorship built in to roles that are new grad specific. And then the last thing I put in role description to look at is location. Are you okay with moving there? Super important. And the next thing I looked at for these apps were role requirements, super important as well. Things like prior experience. Do they want you to have had industry experience? Do they want you to have had any sort of internship experience? Your academic background, also super important. Do they need you to come in with some sort of technical background? Do they need you to have a CS background, an analytics background? What exactly are they looking for? This is key in understanding what type of person they're looking for that role, and also, what the interview itself might be based around. And the last thing I have listed on here are specific skills. And I know that sounds super general, but I have seen job listings before that under the requirements have specific software products that they want you to have previously had experience with or know how to use. So something to point out as well, because it might be something that, I don't know, in the interview process, you want to brush up your knowledge on a little bit, or do a quick little quick little tutorial on how to use before heading into those interviews. And the last thing I look at when looking at these job listings are the company. You know, what is the mission statement for the company? Is it something that excites me? Are they working on products that excite me? What direction is this company going in, and what is kind of their mantra behind it? And the other part to company that I really look at also is culture. And I think for this, I usually just do a Google search about the company itself, read some stuff up about the employees and what they've said. I think that for me, at least, company culture is incredibly important. And you want to know that you're heading into a company that you think you'd feel comfortable working at. All right, so that's at least everything that I look at within the app itself. And I organize everything. So this is where it's super important to get to organized, because my next piece of advice is to have a spreadsheet that tracks everything. This was super helpful to me. Just have a Google sheet, Excel sheet, just helping you track everything that's going on in your recruiting cycle. So this can be if you're applying for a bunch of different roles. At the time, I was really only just focusing on applying to PM roles. So the way I broke it down, at least, is each column, so these are all columns, I had the role, so the name of the role itself, because you'll see at a lot of companies it's either like an associate product manager role or a rotational product manager role, and so that's helpful to distinguish my own description. And I put that into quotes because I don't want to just copy and paste what I saw on the role description of the site itself. I usually just try to take quick little notes like, oh, this is a rotational program meant specifically for new grads. This role is more tech focused. Things like that. Just little notes to help remind me, okay, that is that specific role that I was looking at. Just little things like that to help remind me of which specific role I was looking at. And of course, a link to the job. The next thing is due date. And I know a lot of roles don't have specific due dates. They might just be on a rolling basis of hiring. So for those, I felt like it was really important to just at least note down when the application was posted so that I know kind of what my window of opportunity looks like. And the next thing is the company, you know, where are you applying to? And the last thing I have on here as the column is your application status. Super important. I usually have it just tracking an understanding of, you know, when's the last time I heard back. I really use this column more to be, where am I currently at with this application? And that application status ties in actually closely with color coding the rows. This I found super helpful in just helping me have a high level understanding of how many jobs I've not yet applied to. So I had a color for not yet applied, I had a color for in process, I had a color for accepted, and I had a color for rejected. Honestly, color coding these rows was super helpful because it just helps you when you open up the spreadsheet have a super high level overview of just how much you have left to work through. So super helpful to do. And my last piece of advice for the job application part of everything is looking at what companies are hiring for new grad PMs. So for those of you guys who don't know, I graduated at the end of the year last year. So I am what I categorize myself as a new grad PM. So for that, I looked at all the companies that were hiring for either specifically new grad PMs or their PM roles didn't require like 5+ years of experience. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw on a list of all the companies I looked at because it was quite an extensive list. And for those of you guys who are out there who are looking for PM roles, I think the top most talked about companies have such a low number of PMs that they actually intake, but you can definitely look at all these other companies that have just as amazing programs as well that you might not be as aware of just because it's not as heavily advertised or talked about. So definitely check it out. Okay, let me take a quick break. Okay, now for the more important part that I'm pretty sure you're actually here for, which is how did I interview prep? Hey, so editing Evelyn here. This video ended up being much longer than I had expected. So initially it was going to just be covering 2 topics, the apps themselves and also interview prep. But this video ended up being so long that I decided to just split up the 2 parts into 2 separate videos. So that's why this video oddly just ends here. Go ahead and click onto my other video that I have specifically about interview prep itself if you're interested in hearing more there. the way I'd break down my toolbox are into 3 parts. So let me tell you the 3 books I found most helpful in my PM interview prep process. Interview prepping for product management roles are very different from the way I initially had prepped for software engineering roles. Market sizing. So out of those 3 books, this is what I found helpful framework-wise.